Today in this video we're going to be talking about a 16 by 24 accessory dwelling unit. It's on a post-pier plinth foundation sitting on some 4x8 beams laid sideways, and we got a couple 4x6s going down the middle to split the floor joist load. You could use it for extra living space, she shed, wood shop, garage space. You could put a little gym in there, whatever you want to do. First you got to reference your building plan and see what kind of foundation you're putting down. In this case we knew it was a post-pier plinth foundation. So basically I went out there and I took a string and I marked out the perimeter of the building approximate to the dimensions that were on the building plan. So once I had the string laid out and squared, I could approximate where my plinths were going to go. So I just took my measurements in reference to the building plan and just used spray paint to mark where all my plinths were going to go. I think we did about 19 of them. There's various hardware used, so all the corners where the beams intersect, we put some Simpson hardware there. So your beams are sitting on a 4x4 post that is attached to the adjustable anchors of the pier blocks. It's screwed in. Okay, so how do you start your first course? It's pretty simple. You have your overall, so in this case 16 by 24. You want to use the least blocks that you can. So for example, on your 16-foot side, use two 8-foot blocks. It just makes it a lot easier when you're doing your bolt down. So that's what we did here. We used two 8-foot blocks on the 16-foot side, and then we used 3 of them for the 24. Here's how we do our corner details on our layout. Now, this is going to matter later on in your building, but just trust me, listen to me, and this is how you're going to do it. On your gable wall, make sure you do the 1.5-inch cutback, and that means you're going to do your 4.5-inch cutback on your plate walls. It makes everything a lot easier once you get to the top, and as we go along with this tutorial, you'll figure out why. When you're installing your first course, you're always going to flush the face of the Lincoln block, the exterior face of the Lincoln block, to the exterior of your foundation. So the outside face of the beam, Lincoln block has to flush up right on top of it. What we got to do now is prepare our beam surface for the installation of the block. So you're going to take your Lamitech waterproof foam tape, and before you put that down, make sure you clean off the surface of your beams. You want to make sure you sweep that off, blow it off, whatever you got to do, make sure that surface is clean. Then you're going to put that down. Same thing as the Lincoln block. Make sure that you're flushing it to the exterior face of your beam. So you want it to be right on that edge, and you just go ahead and install that all the way around your perimeter. Once that's down, you're going to take your Z-metal flashing that's provided with your Lincoln block kit, and you're going to do the same thing around the whole perimeter. You're going to cut to length your Z-metal flashing, so you're wrapping the whole perimeter of your foundation. From there, we take our little stem pieces, and just the little dog ear ones that you get. You take about 3 of those per block, and you just take a few screws and install them flat. Do that all the way around the perimeter of your building. That way, if you take your Lincoln blocks back off, then you know exactly where they're going to go back on. You want to make sure that you're putting one of those stem blocks on every seam where the 2 blocks butt together. This will help with your alignment and making sure your seams are clean. Now that you have your fasteners in there to make sure nothing's moving around, you're going to mark out where you're going to lay your washers. Now, we recommend doing a washer approximately every 2 feet, and so that equates to usually like 3 to 4 washers on each block. The next step is you're going to go around to all those marks, and you're going to use a router and your specialized Lincoln block jig to route out the block so you can fit your washers in. After you router all your slots for your washers, you're going to take the courses off so you can sweep your surface. You're going to want to get all of that router material off your foundation. Now you're going to want to glue everything, because this next time we put the blocks on, they're not coming back off. What we do is we do a bead of caulking in the outside stile of the Lincoln block, in the bottom groove where the flashing sits under, just to make sure we got a nice seal right there. And then you're also going to glue all your butt ends of your Lincoln block. Alright, now that we're all squared off and aligned, all you're going to do is you're going to go around the perimeter and drop a Lincoln block washer in all your routed out slots. So you got your 3/8-inch lag screw. You're going to put a standard 3/8 washer onto that lag screw, and then you're going to screw that down into the beam. But you got to make sure you're not over tightening these. Once you get them all installed, you're going to check to make sure all of your blocks are level. And then go and check all your seams and make sure that they are flush at the top, so one's not higher than the other. And just go around, and you're going to have to do little adjustments here and there, but your bolt down is very important, so you want to make sure that you're level all the way around and the seams are aligned perfectly. On your second course, It really helps to do the same thing where you pick the longest length Lincoln blocks that you can use. You just have to make sure when you're installing your next course that your seams from the first course to the second course are split by at least 6 inches. You don't want your seams to be right on top of each other. When you're stacking your blocks, you're going to glue in a certain pattern. So you're going to make sure that you glue on the insides of the tongues on the course that you're stacking your next block on top of. Then you're going to glue on the underside of the block that you're stacking in both the grooves, and once you have that block set, you're going to glue the butt ends of that block where the next block is going to butt up into on the seam. You're also going to caulk the hell out of all of the slots around the edges where you put your washers at. You just want to make sure you goop it up so there's no chance for any water to get in those router areas. So when you're setting the next block on the same course, set your block butted to the end of the last Lincoln block. Then nail into the protruding stems from the previous course to make sure that block doesn't move. And then you're going to take a stem block. You're going to nail it behind the mating seam of the block you just laid in the previous block on the same course. Okay, so now we're gonna throw in our corners. In your Lincoln block kit, you're gonna get a double stem piece, the full height of your building. We're gonna take our doubles and we're gonna throw them in our corners. Now the way you're gonna keep these up is you just take a single long stem and basically fasten it as an angle brace from your corner to the side of the building. Now I like to take the short stem blocks and put one on the side of the building where the bottom of the brace is going to come to, and that just makes it so you have some room to stack courses before you have to adjust your brace. You're going to plumb your corner and then set your brace. So you got one guy up with a level, making sure that the corner is plumb, fasten the brace on one side, and then same thing to the perpendicular corner coming down. So once you got your braces in, just repeat the process for all 4 corners and your corners are installed. Once you have your braces fastened in and you're plumb on all your corners, you're going to want to go around with a 16 penny nail and just hit 2 nails per course. On the 4.5 inch cutback side, the end of your Lincoln block going to the corner on the outside of the wall is butting into the 1.5 inch cutback side. When you're doing your corner trim later on, you got to think about covering those nails. So if you nail too far from the edge of the Lincoln block, then you're not going to be able to cover those nails with your trim. Once I had my doors, my rough openings for my doors marked, it was time to roll the floor. We actually tie our floors into the exterior Lincoln block walls instead of setting the walls on top of the floor. So once you have 2, sometimes 3 courses up depending on the dimension of lumber that you're using. So in this case it was a 2x6. So when you're laying out your floor joists, one end is going to rest on the 1.5 inch reveal of your 4x8 perimeter beam, and then it's going to span across to the other 4x8, and your 4x6 beam that's going down the middle is going to split the joist load. Standard floor running technique, measure from one side, mark out your joists, and just roll your floor real quick. 3/4 inch subfloor on top, tongue and groove. The next thing that I did is I went and looked at my blueprint and found out where my rough openings were going to be at. In this case, we had like an 8-foot garage door, and then we had just a standard man door, and they were all on the front wall. So I just measured out and marked where those were going to go, and once I had that, I just nailed them in just like the corners, 2 nails per course on each side, inside and outside of the wall. And then I had all my doors marked. Once you got your, we'll call them the foundation courses down, you're pretty much off to the Lincoln block races. The 5 facets of Lincoln block: cut, glue, stack, nail, foam. It's our bread and butter. You're at this point now. Roughly every 5 courses, I always like to put what we call in a bridge course or a bridge block, and what that is a block that's long enough to bridge across your opening with about at least 8 inches of contact on both sides. What that does is that keeps the openings aligned so there's no twisting and your courses don't get out of level. If you have any wiring, pass-through plumbing, you want to do some plugs in the exterior wall, you're going to want to make sure that you run that before you're foaming. As you're building your wall, especially before you do your next series of foaming, just go through the wall and check your plumb. Check your level's going to be fine, but check the plumb of your wall. Stand on one end of the wall and look down it. Make sure that the wall is straight. If you were to run a string down it, you want to make sure the wall matches that string. Once you do that first foaming, that is going to lock in your wall. From there, it's going to be almost impossible to move. So you want to make sure that your wall is perfect within the first 5-6 courses before you do your first foaming, because that is setting you up for the rest of your build, how it's going to go. And then just periodically through your job, every 5, 6, 7 courses, just go back again and look down your wall, check for plumb, make sure everything's lining up good. It's going to make your job go a lot easier. Okay, so roof lines. Every roof is different, but I'm going to tell you exactly how we did the one on this job. So we had a single slope roof. So what's going to happen is you, on your front and back plate walls, you're going to get to your overall height. Okay, once you get to your overall height, there is a process of installing the top cap. I won't go into it right now, but there is a process for that. What we're going to focus on though is your gable walls. What do your gable walls look like? You're going to take a string line and you're going to fasten it to your top plate wall and your bottom plate wall. That's going to give you the pitch of your roof. From there, you're going to stack the courses on your gable walls in a stair-like fashion that's tiered down, making sure that the string is passing through block. So you don't want to use too little or too much Lincoln block, so that's why we tier it out. At a later time, later date, you're going to go back with a saw and you're going to cut the angle, the rake of your gable. So you just want to make sure you get it close and then do that on each side. We want to take our rafter and put them against the gable wall where you have your tiered Lincoln block. Then use your rafter as a guide to trace a line up your gable wall, and that's going to be your cut line. Now I like to take the line that I trace on my rafter, and when I'm doing my cut, I usually will cut about an inch or so under the line, just to make sure that my rafter is slightly above the gable. When I roll my plywood for my roof, it clears the Lincoln block and the Lincoln block's not in the way. When you're doing your rafters, it's a pretty standard procedure. Your rafters are going to sit on top of both of your plate walls where you've installed your top caps. You just do your standard rafter rolling technique where you mark out where your rafters are going to land. Similar to a standard pop-out procedure, when you cut your notch in your outside rafter to get that pop-out going out there, same thing with Lincoln block. You're just cutting through the actual Lincoln block wall. The beautiful thing about Lincoln block is that it is compatible with basically any traditional or standard building procedure. The only difference is you're dealing with a Lincoln block exterior wall, but if you know how to build anything, it's not rocket science to figure out how to deal with the Lincoln block factor. Like I said, with the floors, you're tying into the wall instead of platform framing. A little bit different, but very simple. And with your rafters, it's basically the same thing. The plate walls, it's like framing right on top of a 2x6. It's a real nice attachment. You can bird mouth your rafters. You can do pretty much anything you can do in standard construction. But it's just Lincoln block. All right, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you go to lincolnblock.com to check out our product. And if you want to start your own build yourself, we have all our contact information on there. Feel free to reach out.